everybody, welcome to Track Talk. Today we are talking to VPX Motorsport's team principal, Vince Partap. Vince is a cardioradiologist at the Mackenzie Health Hospital in Richmond Hill. He's also heavily involved in the Mackenzie Health Foundation, which is a fundraising initiative that the hospital has. Vince raced in the 2022 season of the SCCC in a Mercedes AMG, and this year he's got two cars that will be participating in the series with VPX Motorsport. So please welcome Vince Partap.
How was your off season?
Off season was good. I tend not to complain about the fact that I have to work every single day, but my regular job is a time consuming thing. But you got to find time you got to make time, for my family, and I always try to take a few trips here and there, broaden my mind, see the world, that sort of stuff. But there's no real off season. I think we're all living and breathing and thinking racing all the time.
Where did you guys go? Where did you go with the family?
COVID has kind of put a damper on things. We were traveling, before, we tried to take 2 or 3 trips, and, my kids are a little bit older now. So school gets in the way, unfortunately. But I myself went back I'm originally from Trinidad, and I went back there after 3 or 4 years of not being there. Took 2 weeks and just really reset. I really needed it. It wasn't just the warmth, it was just the fact you go to a place where things are a little bit more laid back, and you realize, listen, the world doesn't have to be running on a time clock all the time. Can
you explain to everybody what your regular job is?
I will try. Even my parents don't know what I do. So what I do is if I can phrase it, it's like organic plumbing, if you want to put it that way. I deal in the arteries and veins, and instead of cutting people open, we do it through very small holes, and we use really tiny catheters or tubes, with really expensive machinery operating the whole thing. But we're managed to, work on people while they're awake. And the things that, let's say, surgeons used to do, or what medicine used to do 30 years ago, and you'd be in hospital for 3-4 days, I can do in 1 hour, and you're home in 4 hours. And the things, I mean, it's an amazing thing. I'm better because technology is better, right? But arteries and veins, anything that gets blocked, anything except the heart and the head, I will open. And that's just the nature of what I do. That's 60% of my job, and I love it.
And then you also do a lot, like you're very passionate about your fundraising as well. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Sure. Yeah. Our hospitals, and I'm going to give it a little plug here, Mackenzie Health up in Richmond Hill, Vaughan. I'm very active was very active on the foundation, right? Which helps the hospital obviously raise money and provide programs. The government provides a certain amount, but then the hospital is expected to also provide some of the rest, and they do that through a foundation. I was privileged to sit on something called the Emerging Leaders Committee, and what we did is we went out and we tried to fundraise for the hospital. But in doing so, you meet different sort of sources, different types of people. It was a younger group, under 40, and I did that for 4 or 5 years, but I still continue to do that today. And to me, I think giving back, or at least using whatever skills or abilities I have to contribute. In my case, I chose to do with the hospital, is really important to me, and I plan on continuing to do that with the team. And in fact, we're going to organize an event where it promotes many different things of what I'm doing on the racetrack and the organization, but it also helps spotlight to the community that we can continue to give back to the hospital despite what we do. And for that, I've managed to have a lot of partners who are coming, and they're just 100% wanting to do this, involved, and I'm really pleased to see this sort of take off.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's great, like what you've been able to put together in such a short period of time. And then not only that, but to have it, backed by everything else that you do, which I think is so great.
Yeah, I'm fortunate really to have people believe in what I'm going to do. You know how hard it is to convince people in this sort of business, but they've not only been supporters of sort of the team and what the strategy and the plan is, but also in all the endeavors that I want to do around it, which is not directly related to racing. And that to me is the basis of having that. That is when you know your partners, sponsors, I like to call them partners, are believing in what we're doing.
And where can somebody go to learn a little bit more about that? Do you guys have a website for the foundation or?
For the foundation, yeah, it's a Mackenzie Health Foundation. That's pretty much it. If you search it up, you can do it. We haven't put a link on our own website yet, but I plan on doing that within the next month or so. So they will, once I have everything organized, you'll be able to go to our website, vpxmotorsport.com, and all the information will be there.
Talk to us a little bit about VPX and how it came to be.
Yeah, it's first of all, the name is for want of a better name, my initials, and we needed something. We didn't think two was going to work, so X was fine. Honestly, it's something that I've been thinking about, not the VPX, but sort of the strategy for about a year and a half, and slowly I tested that last year, tried to make that work. Unfortunately, we had not everything was in my control, and just as I said, sometimes you get these hiccups, and it didn't really go the way I wanted it to go. So then I had to reset and look at, who do I need around me to make this concept happen. And so I went out and I fortunately was able to find people that I've known for the last 10 years and who are really passionate about this. I sat them all down individually, not together. I didn't want them to know what the other person was going to do, and sold them on this and told them about this strategy. I said, look, you know what? The concept is a vertical integrated motorsport company that is going to operate in Canada and the United States, because what I've seen is that a lot of young guys, even like Sam, right? Come up through the karting, come up through the F1600s, get into the sports car racing, do whatever we have here, right? Whether it's Supercar Challenge, whether it's FEL, but then they got nowhere else to go, right? Then they have to go about and start the same process again down in the United States. And I thought, well, what if we as a company have the ability to take these guys from sort of like the pre-sports car level into the sports car championship, and whether it's GT4, which we have a great series here at FEL, and then we go to the States, SRO, you want to jump into GT3, and I want to have those cars available. So if I were to get a driver who was really interested, who we believed in and who they believed in us, imagine us being able to take them all the way for 3, 4, 5 years in and stay with us, right? That's advantageous to the driver because he gets to know the team, and that's advantageous to the team because we have somebody who we have signed for 3 or 4 or 5 years, and we are happy to develop to get to that point. So that was the concept, and I'm happy to say that it's moving really strongly in that direction, and I'm really happy. I'm really, really happy for that. My guys have been, yeah, my guys have been really, really good. I handpicked them, and I told them, look, this is the strategy. If this is something that you want to do and where you think you're going to be here 3, 4 years, come aboard. I'm not going to pay you a cent, which was my test to them. And everybody came on. And that's how that the money, yes, the money is important, but to them, that strategy to believe in, and I'm so happy to have them around me.
So right now you guys have 2 Mercedes AMGs that are going to be racing in the Sports Car Championship Canada in the GT4 class, and then you have other cars as well.
Yeah, so we have the two. Those are the primary ones that are going to compete at obviously a semi-professional level in the series. But we also have a Cayman, a converted a Porsche Cayman, which is full on able to run in multiple series across the United States and Canada. It's built for that. So anything from, let's say, regional racing in CSC to WRL in the United States. And if we converted it, it could probably run in multiple small series, wherever we choose. And what that does, it gives us the versatility to take somebody who's, let's say, not ready for the kind of racing we would have in the FEL Sports Car Championship, but can still do CSC, can still progress up through the rank, especially for a young kid who's, let's say, 17, 18 or so. We get to test them in this car, get them up to speed, maybe spend a season with them. But guess what? They know that we have another car available. We test them in that car, and then we progress and help them build that. And so this is the beauty of it all, right?
It's like prepping and development for, which is exactly what the concept is.
Correct. Yeah, we can't. There's no point, right? There's a lot of really good motorsport outfits out there that have cars or able to run a customer's car, but that's sort of where it ends, right? We want to be able to help you through the off season, um, training on the simulator. I have a full-time engineer and driver coach. We have a physiotherapist on staff, nutrition, performance, everything. So it's not just developing the car or developing the person and his skills. It's developing the body and the mind as well.
I just want to kind of roll back a bit, even prior to VPX. Where did this passion for racing really begin for you? Where did you catch the racing bug, as we all say?
I would say that goes way back to my childhood. Growing up in Trinidad, we had two channels on the TV, right? Literally two channels, and on Sundays we had something called ABC's Wild World of Sports. I don't know if you guys are old enough to know that, but it was ABC. Basically, what they did is on that Sunday, every sport that you could find all across the world, it was just broadcast over 3 or 4 hours. These snippets, and I used to sit with my grandfather who really loved F1 racing, and so imagine, we're a small country in the Caribbean, and but he was so passionate about F1, so I would just sit there, no clue, at 7, 8 years old, and watch this. I got hooked on it. So I got hooked on F1 and American football. Right? That's what I did. So yeah, so I'm in school. Everybody's talking cricket and soccer, and I'm talking about Nigel Mansell, Alan Prost. I'm talking about Dan Marino and Joe Montana. Everybody's like, who are these people? And so that's kind of where this whole bug started, and I stuck with F1, just like a true fan for the last basically 40 years. And when I got to Canada, I came here as a teenager, and as you go through life, I mean, I went into medicine, and that occupied pretty much my entire teenage years and young adult life. But once I was out and practicing, I really wanted to own a sports car. So I got to that point where I got this interesting story. I got to the point where I bought myself a 911 because it was my dream growing up. Got it, and then I really just had a chance, actually. Robert Burgess actually sold me that car. Robert.
Yeah. No, I know, because he used to work for Porsche.
Yeah, yeah. So he sold me that car, and then he told me, "Hey, you should go take it on the track." And I said, "Okay, who should I go with?" And he said, "Oh, you just go with this guy, Rick Morelli." Um, so I went, and Rick was my first instructor. He's a really good friend to this day. We got on track, and I went around, and I was terrified, like absolutely terrified. And it was most sports, so when you're going on most sport at 80 kilometers an hour, it's the safest track in the world, right? Until you get up to speed. Uh, so we did that, and I found myself not really enthralled with the speed, but how he was able to put the car in the corners, and how precise it was. And that really started this entire bug of trying to figure out, geez, how can I be fast in corners? How can I be more precise? Within 9 months, I sold the car and bought myself a 2004 GT3, and just spent the next 3 years working the crap out of that car. Where almost flipped it. We had this massive spins in Cal Bogey. Drove around Mosport with a broken rim, not knowing it. Um, it was just the most fascinating thing. But it really taught me how to drive. Right, the thing had ABS. That was it, and you just had to control every aspect of it. And I think from there, this was back in 2009 or 2010, around there. And since then, it's just been a slow progression into, club racing and CSC. And then in 2019, in 2020 or 2021, I think I said, look, I got to take this to the next level. If I don't do it, I probably won't do it. And unfortunately COVID hit. But yeah, last year my dream was realized to participate in something as professional as the FEL series, and yeah, that was my road there, and I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to stay here.
Let's talk a little bit about that then. Last year was your first season with FEL, and you're going to be maybe racing again this year.
Yeah, we'll see how things work out. I may, we'll see how things work out. Yeah, you're definitely going to see me as the team principal and owner. I'm going to be there every single race. But yeah, I have the unique position that if a position needs to be filled in the car, I'll jump in and I'll do it.
We want to put butts in seats.
Yeah, exactly. I had a great time last year. I think last year was, as I go around telling people at the hospital, one of the greatest experiences of my life. And I'm really happy to have done that. Obviously, everybody has their own idea of what is the best thing that ever happened to them in life. So this is up there with that experience, right? Being able to drive, not just for myself, but with the competition, right? The competition was really good.
Was there any particular race or moment from the season last year that stands out as like a wow, this is awesome?
Probably everybody you've interviewed is going to say the same thing, but it was the Honda Indy. You hear it, we know it because it's in our city. It's been our city for a long time. But to actually go there, I mean, we were there on the Friday just doing the track walk and driving around and just taking pictures of the fact that Jesus, we're here, right? We're on Lakeshore Boulevard. It's all sort of wire fenced and concreted off, and the thrill of knowing that we're going to be on this the next day, right? It was just so fantastic. The whole experience. Well, the next day when we got into practice, that completely changed because I was terrified. I was absolutely terrified. We're getting around, and all I could think about going around is wall, wall, wall. And so your engineer is like, okay, you got to forget the wall. So, okay, great. Forget the wall, get up to speed. And you're like, hey, okay, I can do this. Now you get up to speed, and all of a sudden the wall is closer and closer and closer. So that first 30 minutes of practice was really something. But I think once you get into it, like on the Saturday, and the sheer number of people that came through our paddock and wanted to be, close to us, and then obviously the butterflies of sitting, starting the first race at the Honda Indy. I think it took me about 2 weeks to figure out that I just had one of the greatest experiences of my life. It really did take that long for that to sink in.
Did last year and this year too, I guess, did you do any sim work? I know you mentioned you had some VPX sims for driver training, but how about like learning Honda Indy and stuff?
Last year, Alex Ellis was my driver coach, and he was actually the engineer for the team that I was on. And he had said, look, we got to get 100 hours of sim training in before we start this series, because you're going to be dealing with a different car, and the competition is going to be better, and so we need to get you there. And I said, not a chance. I'm going to be able to commit to 100 hours of sim work. We actually managed to get up to about 30, and it was helpful. We did that between January and March of 2022. And I was very happy for it, because it was a different experience for me, not being able to feel the car, but more looking at visual inputs and understanding your space, like spatial resolution of the video, let's say the video that you're running through to get the car where it is. But it did help. It did help me, certainly for developing certain techniques at Motorsport, which was the primary track, and then obviously learning new tracks. So I didn't specifically learn the tracks that we were racing on. I actually went and tried to develop skills on new tracks to figure out how would I attack a new track if I got there. What would be, and that's what Alex really helped me to do, right? So the sim really, I think, helps with that. But honestly, I'm a get in the car and drive type of guy, and sort it out while I'm there on the track. So I can see the usefulness of the sim, especially for the younger people that are coming in. For me, I definitely will get back for a few hours, but I don't think I'm going to be doing 30 hours this year on the sim.
let's explain to anybody who's interested how they would go through that process of getting into that second seat with you. Like what does that look like, or how do you do the onboarding process?
Well, certainly there was a lot of interest back in October and November, and I mean there's a lot of interest, right, in people looking for a ride. The first thing, obviously, is to reach out to me and let's have a discussion about sort of what the driver's goals are, or where they see themselves, and then what we will do is we'll have an honest discussion about the person's qualifications and their driver resumes going into this, because it's a step up over just a regular car. These GT4 cars are they're a little bit different to handle. Fantastic automobiles, but if you're sort of just jumping in from without any experience, it's going to be a lot to handle. So we need to look at that, and we go through the process. You know, every individual is different, but I would say the first thing is just reach out to me and let's have that discussion. And then we look at, you know, figuring out ways in which to get a driver into that car. It's not obviously an expensive sport, but it's not about the money, because we actually, like I said, my goal is to develop drivers and to have a team. And I really look at it as a team approach. So, you know, any driver that comes on with us, you know, we're there to help them, right? And some of that is monetary help.
How important is sponsorship and social media and that relationship to you at this point? And then how also do you think it's important to the drivers?
It like in everything else, you know, motorsport, everybody knows motorsport's an expensive, very, very expensive, you know, hobby, if you want to call it that way. A lot of the costs are fixed. You know, we don't really control them. They're tires and fuel and fees and things like that. So, you know, you got to come in here with a healthy appreciation that you just sort of can't, you know, come in. You can't come in without a plan, right? So for us, you know, one of the most important arms and strategies for VPX was having good partners on board, and not just for a year, but for a longer term. And I say longer term because our plan is 3 to 5 years. I managed to engage a couple of very, very strong partners, as you know, that have been able to believe in the vision and see it. Because in sponsorship, everybody will tell you that no matter who you go to, whether they're friends or family or somebody new, it's a return on investment that people are looking for. It's a business like everything else. So if they're going to invest in you and in your team and or in a driver, it's about what are they going to get out of it in return. And not all of that is monetary, right? It's not an equal percentage. It's about, well, how can they leverage us as a team to help them in their business? And those are the partners that I've been successful in onboarding, is showing them that what we can do as a team, what we can provide for them outside of racing, because that's important. It's not just about putting the name on the car. What can we do outside of that? And I think that's really important when anybody's looking for sponsorship, is to develop that plan before you go in and sit down with anybody and show them what you can do. Not just say, hey, if I put your name on my car, you're going to look great, and lots of people are going to come to your business. You know, that's not necessarily true. We're going to work. One of the things we're going to do is work really, really hard to make sure that our partners are happy, that we're offering multiple things other than just a racing, and to connect them all, because there's a lot of value in connecting the different sponsors and partners together.
I really do think that for the Canadian motorsport landscape to continue to grow and to blossom into where, you know, I think we all wanted to end up, guys really have to start to develop a personal brand, and you know, whether that's through social media or whether that's just through the community, where, you know, in their own personal networks, like, it is expensive, and that's the biggest barrier to entry, right? So I just want, you know, the viewers thinking more about that, people who are interested in getting involved, just thinking more about that.
It's a really, really important part, and I would encourage anybody from, you know, the drivers obviously who are coming up, and they will be quite young, and you know, you do have to make sure you know who you are, right? So if you're going to put your brand out, same thing with VPX, it's got to be, I do not make any compromises for my brand. The guys around me know that. I said I will not compromise it. This is what it's going to do. I'm not going to make a handshake deal or something like that that's going to sort of lower the level that I want VPX to be at. So that's number one. And I think if you can stake your claim in it, a brand's not just, we don't just put it out there and say, hey, look, we're something. We don't earn it either. We actually live up to it, right? And over time, we're going to live up to what this brand signifies. Same thing with every new driver or young person that comes out there. Know who you are, right? Put it on a piece of paper. Think about what your goals are and where you want to be, and go out and do it. I've had a couple of young guys who reached out to me, and I was impressed at the fact that they had this all written down. They had a website. They were articulate, and they told me exactly what they wanted to do. And even though it may not work out all the time for some of these people, I'm truly impressed at what they've done, and I will definitely listen to them.
Yeah, and I think brands at the end of the day, especially in the world that we live in now, brands really want to try and personify themselves as much as possible, because they need to build that human connection. And that is really what sponsorship is about, is aligning yourself or being able to, find brands that are willing to align themselves with you. So yeah.
Yeah, and we're lucky to have that. And our title partner have been phenomenal and just really encouraging and participating in everything. And I think that comes from the fact that I laid it out on the line as soon as we met, that these are my goals, these are the things I want to do, these are the partnerships, the other partnerships I want to have, this is the charity work I want to do, and we're very lucky to have them.
If you could race in any motorsports era, past or present, what would it be, and what would the series or car be?
My feeling about this is I don't reminisce about the past a lot. I think that any era that we currently live in, so whether we're living in the 80s or 90s or now, I think is probably the best era of motorsport. And the reason is because I've not physically driven or been present in the eras before. I did not drive in the 80s or 90s. I only drove in the last, let's say, decade or so. So I can appreciate the technology. I can appreciate the safety. I can appreciate, the things that I have now. So I always tend to think, look, I'm lucky to be where I am right now. And all that I see around me is based on that, is based on current sort of, technology like F1, sports car, Le Mans series, even drifting and rally racing. So I enjoy that. So I think the best era of motorsport is the one that we're currently living in. What type of series? I'm a big fan of endurance. I really am. And I think part of where VPX is going to go is to develop some place in that. Take the Le Mans, what used to be Le Mans, American Le Mans series, right? So the WeatherTech and then European Le Mans series, where these are 3 to 4 hour race. They're pretty set. They have 3 drivers of different classes, and you get to stop and you get to do pit stops and you get to manage your tires. And I think that tends to even the field, and obviously I'm a very strategic type person. It helps with strategy. So not necessarily the fastest driver is going to win. It really is about how the team's going to put this together. And it kind of evens the field a little bit, as opposed to, hey, flags drop and you got 30 minutes to win a race. This is the appealing stuff to me, right? That longer term. And I really hope to do more of that.
We'll jump into the hot lap section now. So rapid fire Q&A. Some answers, if you want to dive into, feel free. First one here: do you prefer wet or dry races?
The thing with wet is it really evens out the field in terms of the drivers. I like the field grip. I don't like to know where it is. I like to feel it out and figure it out. And over 2 or 3 laps, you get to do that. And in the rain, it not just tests your skills, but it really tests everybody's anxiety level, right? How far are you willing to go, right? Because in the rain, everything's different.
How about, what's most important to you, corner entry, apex, or exit?
Corner entry is the most important, I think, though I spend more time perfecting corner exit than I do corner entry. It's easy to throw a car down into the corner for me. I do it, and then I try to figure it out afterwards, and then realize, okay, I've carried way too much speed. But then I always, and I'm gonna let my competitors know right away. I hesitate a little bit on the throttle when I'm exiting, and I'm really working hard on that. Really, really working out to make that better.
What's a bucket list track to drive in the world?
What used to be my bucket list was an Nürburgring. I drove it. Just please go drive it. It is really something. I went there, and the first evening we just jumped on. It was an open track, and we just got in there and did it in a regular street car. And I was so hooked after, I think, like 4 or 5 laps, which probably takes you like 30 minutes to do, or more. No more, definitely more. And then it's like, okay, I got to do this again. Went back the next morning and just did another 4 or 5 laps on it. Just, yeah, it's really good. So that was my bucket list. Now I have 2 tracks that I would really like to drive. One's the Suzuka circuit, and the second is Imola. And they're similar. They're different, but they're similar in a sense that they're old school, a little bit. But there's a lot of speed, but they require a lot of balance. You won't find like heavy braking, except in a couple of spots. But there's a lot of finesse in how you make some of those corners at speed, because a lot of those are at pretty high speed. So yeah, those would be my bucket list, and I will drive them.
What's a bucket list event to attend as a fan?
Since I grew up pretty much loving F1, and while I've been to the F1 in Montreal, pre-COVID, I want to say I want to get to every single F1 event, but that's almost impossible within a year to do, and plus extraordinarily expensive. But what I would like to do as a bucket list is attend in 1 year, attend one F1 race on each of the continents.
So would you prefer oversteer or understeer in a car you're racing?
Loose is fast, right? If you can, if your car is set up, and they know I like my car set up, right? I want it to be pointy, right? But I want the back a little bit loose, right? So I find myself much better to control oversteer than I am to deal with understeer.
Who would you say has been the most significant influence in your life as far as racing and motorsport goes?
I don't know if specifically there's one person in motorsport that really has, like that. I mean, I follow motorsport. I like a lot of the drivers, things like that. One of the guys when I think about how I approach motorsport and sort of the analytical part of it and how to drive is, everybody knows Alan Prost, right? Formula One driver in the 80s and early 90s. They call him a professor, right? Because he was so analytical. And I think if I had to align myself with somebody who is, maybe inspired a little bit about, how to approach racing, it was him. It was very technical, very methodical. And I know sometimes, you want to just James Hunt it, as I call, and just jump in the car and drive. He's one of the guys that I find myself most aligned to, because that's what I do as well. I sit there, I work it out. I want to know what the car setups are. I want to know, generally how the car is going to behave, and try to, control as much as I can, right? Because once I get in the race, it's just one singular focus, which is to drive. So, I think that would be for me, the most, I think, influential thing in how I race. But yeah, no one specific individual has, crafted, my desire for motorsport. I think it's always been there.
Growing up with the Senna Prost battles, Suzuka and whatnot, you're on the Team Prost, I'm guessing.
Yeah, you know what? Like I said, at that point in time, I would have been in my teenage years, right? So I was amazed at what these guys could do, right? I was amazed. Everybody was amazed at what Senna could do, right? But I think, yeah, looking at I was always enthralled with those kind of battles, to watch that. Obviously, we didn't know the politics about who crashed who and how that worked, but yeah, it was amazing to watch that, because Prost would win races with when he shouldn't, right? There were times when I would watch that and go like, hey, second, he only changed his tires 3 times, the other guy changed it 4th, and you only find out later that he didn't have enough wing. He basically, they didn't have enough power in the car, so they reduced the the wing on it, so they got less degradation and had the pit stop one less, and that 40 seconds made all the difference that you want to race, right?
What's something that you learned over the course of racing last season?
Stay out of tornadoes. I mean, I think that was our biggest learner on the first weekend. You know, one of the things that was instrumental in me getting through the year was the team. Okay, some of the guys on the team I was with last year are on my team this year, and there's a reason for it, because you know those guys really helped me progress. You know, it was scary. It was really scary for me. I'm not gonna lie, it was scary at the beginning. You know, you come in there and you look at these 20-year-old guys, and you know they got no fear in the world. And obviously, for somebody like me, you know, there's a healthy dose of restraint, right? So you go into there and you have to develop ways of how you deal with this. And I think the team around me were just extraordinary in helping me extract that. They were very supportive when they had to be. They were always like, hey, Vince, you know, you can do it. You can do it. You know, we got this. You know, your car is really set up. You know, trust it, right? Because, again, I'm overthinking it a little bit. One of the guys used to always say, look, I just want you to smile. By like the end of September, please smile. And he goes, because then I'll know you're having fun. I go, I am having fun. So the thing I learned the most is how important teamwork is, because, you know, we go out there, we drive the car, you know, whether you win or you don't win, people see out there and they think, oh my God, it's the drivers, but it's everybody behind the scenes that are working to get that car ready for you. And not just at the track, but at the shop and all the planning. I mean, the planning we've been doing for the last 6 months has been extraordinary, right? To lead up to, like, you know, a showing, let's just say, on the long weekend. But that team is indispensable, and I would be nowhere without them. And so what I've learned is that you can't do everything on your own. There's a real arrogance in believing you can, and I'm really happy that my team is around me. I really am.
What about the biggest challenge that you've had?
You know, one of the things that I still find a challenge with is that, you know, there's a lot of preconceived ways of doing things. Not preconceived, but there's ways of, you know, how sort of the industry has been working, and obviously being new to it, or having not as much familiarity as, let's say, some of the other teams that have been there, it's a little bit difficult to navigate. Also, you know, you're relying on a network that's pre-existed before myself. And so I find that a little bit frustrating, because I expect things to go a certain way and then they don't. So that's been really the biggest challenge for us in developing a new team. And obviously we're talking about equipment and personnel and so forth and so on. That's been a little bit tough to organize, but I think, you know, we've managed to figure that out, and we understand now timelines and who can get us what. And so again, we realign with the people that can help us achieve our goal within the specific period of time. That's really been the biggest challenge, but I think we're getting ahead of that now. We're almost like within one more week we would be ready to basically attack this season and the next, fully equipped, all ready, with plan B's, plan C's, and plan D's, as I like to call it.
Where can people find you online? Where do they follow?
So www.vpxmotorsport.com. You can get on there, and, you know, there's a lot of, you know, we try to fill it with as many pictures as we can, you know, obviously a lot from the last Honda Indy, but we will, you know, constantly update that. That's being managed professionally. And all our announcements, everything will be there. On that page, you'll find links to our YouTube channel and links to the Instagram. The Instagram is at VPX Motorsport. You know, they can also find it obviously on your website as well, right? Once that's up and running. But yeah, follow us, like us. So we're going to be at the events. We're going to come out, and you're going to know that we're there.
Thank you so much for your time.
Great interview. Yeah.
Thank you guys for having me.
Still going bad on you anyway. Whoa. I can feel like 80 rats in my Marys. Me and Drizzy back to back is getting scary.